We're going to cross now to the Pentagon, where they are holding a press conference.
And as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs will demonstrate, it was an incredible and overwhelming success. The order we received from our commander-in-chief was focused, it was powerful, and it was clear. We devastated the Iranian nuclear program. But it's worth noting the operation did not target Iranian troops or the Iranian people. For the entirety of his time in office, President Trump has consistently stated for over 10 years that Iran must not get a nuclear weapon. Full stop. Thanks to President Trump's bold and visionary leadership and his commitment to peace through strength, Iran's nuclear ambitions have been obliterated. Many presidents have dreamed of delivering the final blow to Iran's nuclear program, and none could until President Trump. The operation President Trump planned was bold and it was brilliant, showing the world that American deterrence is back. When this president speaks, the world should listen. And the U.S. military, we can back it up. The most powerful military the world has ever known. No other country on planet Earth could have conducted the operation that the chairman is going to outline this morning. Not even close. Just like Soleimani found out in the first term, Iran found out when POTUS says 60 days that he seeks peace and negotiation, he means 60 days of peace and negotiation. Otherwise, that nuclear program, that nuclear capability will not exist. He meant it. This is not the previous administration. The President Trump said no nukes. He seeks peace, and Iran should take that path. He sent out a truth last night saying this: any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed tonight. Signed, the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. Iran would be smart to heed those words. He's said it before, and he means it. I want to give recognition to the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Joint Staff, General Eric Kurilla at CENTCOM, who did a phenomenal job, he and his staff, all of CENTCOM. Policy across the board. This was a joint effort, and across the Pentagon effort. I want to recognize the pilots who flew those bombers, who flew those fighters, who flew those refuelers, warriors. I want to recognize the sailors on those destroyers, in those subs, on those carriers, warriors, all of them. I want to recognize our soldiers doing air defense, base defense, QRF, warriors, all of them. Every American involved in this operation performed flawlessly. And I want to give recognition to our allies in Israel as well. This is a plan that took months and weeks of positioning and preparation so that we could be ready when the President of the United States called. It took a great deal of precision. It involved misdirection and the highest of operational security. Our B-2s went in and out of downtown Tehran, of these nuclear sites, in and out and back without the world knowing at all. In that way, it was historic. A strike that included the longest B-2 Spirit bomber mission since 2001 and the first operational employment of the MOP, a massive ordnance penetrator. The mission demonstrated to the world the level of joint and allied integration that speak to the strength of our alliance and our joint forces. As President Trump has stated, the United States does not seek war, but let me be clear. We will act swiftly and decisively when our people, our partners, or our interests are threatened. Iran should listen to the President of the United States and know that he means it, every word. I want to give congratulations to our Commander-in-Chief. It was an honor to watch him lead last night and throughout. and to our great American warriors on this successful operation. God bless our troops. God bless America. And we give glory to God for his providence and continue to ask for his protection.
OK, now to tell us more is GBNews Home and Security Editor Mark White. Mark, thank you for joining us. Mark, obviously that was the live press briefing there. What do you make of what you've heard? Has it moved us any further?
Well, you heard that from Pete Hegseth, the Defense Secretary in the US, talking about the most incredible operation that involved very significant resources to carry out this audacious bombing attack inside Iran. Operation Midnight, this bombing raid was called. B-2 stealth bombers were used. They left from the United States, with some flying west across the Pacific as part of the deception process. No one, he said, knew really, except for a very few people within the administration, of what was unfolding. That was vital, the Defense Secretary said, in ensuring the success of this mission. Now, he said it was designed to severely degrade Iran's nuclear program. It wasn't intended and didn't target Iranian troops or indeed Iranian civilians. He said that Iran's nuclear ambitions have been obliterated. Trump's plan, a lot of superlatives used here to describe what his boss, President Trump, had put together in terms of this plan. He said President Trump's plan was bold and brilliant. When President Trump says 60 days, talking about the negotiations, of course, with the Iranians that were just bogged down by Iranian obfuscation and went absolutely nowhere, Pete Hegseth said that means 60 days or the program won't exist. He said that it was the longest B-2 mission since 2001, so in 24 years. A massive ordnance penetrator bombs were used. 14 of those were used during this mission. In fact, in total, 75 precision-guided munitions were used, including those 14 bunker buster bombs that were dropped on the Fordo nuclear site with the aim of penetrating deep into the mountainside. Now, according to Pete Hegseth, he said extremely severe damage was caused to all three sites with these bunker busting bombs. As far as the actual battle damage assessment is concerned, the Joint Chiefs said there that they're still to carry out that proper battle damage assessment. So, perhaps they're just getting a little ahead of themselves. But from what clearly they've been able to tell with their intelligence and satellite imagery, they believe that they have caused extremely severe damage to all three sites. Of course, the sites not just at Fordo, but at Natanz and also at Isfahan. So a really audacious, huge operation that required a lot of planning, and just incredible, really, that these bomber aircraft with their supporting tankers and combat aircraft got into Iran, got out safely, according to Pete Hegseth and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Kane. He said that they were not engaged by any Iranian fighters, nor did the surface-to-air missile systems apparently spot them at all.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark, for bringing us up to date on that. I'm joined in the studio now by Chair of Republicans Overseas, Greg Swenson. Greg, you've just sat with me and listened to the press briefing from the Pentagon, Pete Hegseth and Dan Kane, General Dan Kane. What did you make of what they had to say?
It's really incredible, the way they described this mission, and it just demonstrates the capability of the United States military. It was both the Air Force and the Navy. And it demonstrates the strength and the idea that we can have peace through strength. This is, as you know, President Trump's very much an anti-war president, but when it's necessary, he's not afraid to use.
That message came across throughout that press briefing, I found, the fact that, we have done this, we are demonstrating our strength. America, they said several times, America is the only country that can do this. That's a very strong warning in there to any other countries that
China
might be.
And Russia. Absolutely. So it demonstrates our capability, but also demonstrates some moral clarity here, which we desperately needed. We don't get that enough from the West. You had the ridiculous comments from the UN after the mission was executed, and so I think bringing some moral clarity after months of this moral ambiguity that you get from many leaders in the West. It's pretty reassuring. Now,
as you mentioned earlier on, Donald Trump was elected on a promise to avoid foreign wars.
Yeah.
So there are some that would say, well, this sounds like a foreign war to us.
Yeah, because the alternative was to let the mullahs, let the regime have nuclear capabilities. So this, in many ways, is avoiding war. The best way to avoid war is prepare for war. And again, this is a great example of peace through strength. So, yeah, unfortunately, sometimes when lines are crossed, there has to be a military response. He did it with Soleimani in early 2020. And, all the critics are saying, oh, he's going to start World War III. He's escalating. No, this is not escalation. In many ways, this is self-defense on behalf of Israel. But it was really important for the president to give the mullahs an opportunity to do this diplomatically, to do it the peaceful way. And, the 60-day deadline passed, and we just couldn't have another moment where red lines are crossed and there's no response. We saw it with President Obama and the red lines in Syria, and he backed away. So we've had appeasement from both the Obama and Biden administrations, and we see what happens with appeasement. We saw what the regime was able to do when they were basically financed by Obama and Biden and to fund their proxy wars. So this was a moment that really had to happen. I don't think there was any alternative.
You sound very proud of what Trump has done.
Absolutely.
I mean, obviously, you're a Republican, so you would be, but I mean...
Yeah, we're very proud, and we're also proud of these brave airmen and brave
That was another point that
sailors.
Came across very much, so the people actually taking part.
Absolutely. And I mean, a shout out to my friend Steve Tittle, who's retiring from the Air Force next week. And it's men and women like that make such great sacrifices and take great risk. Imagine flying these B-2 bombers into Iranian airspace while 75 Tomahawk missiles are flying around from the submarines. So a really incredible execution.
Now, the one question that wasn't answered there, Greg, in that press conference was our retaliation. Now, we know Iran retaliated instantly, firing more rockets into Israel. So they do still have the capability to do that. But what does happen now? What comes next if Iran does retaliate against American targets?
And I'm not sure if they can possibly retaliate. What could they possibly do unless it's just a suicide mission at this point? I mean, look what happened last night. I think that we've demonstrated what we can do when we put our mind to it, and what Iran can expect if they retaliate. Now, obviously they've retaliated by firing missiles on Tel Aviv. That's not new. They've been doing that for a couple of years now. So 400 missiles fired just over the last 8 months, 300 in one night, if you recall. So they're not afraid to punch back, but I do think they would be making a grave mistake to attack any U.S. assets.
Okay, Greg, thank you very much.
Good to be here.
That's
Thanks,
Greg
Mike.
Swenson, Chairman of Republicans Overseas. Okay, joining me now is Professor of International Politics, Scott Lucas, for more reaction on America's military attack on Iran. Scott, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. Scott, I don't know if you were just listening to Emily there. Emily in Israel was saying that this isn't a declaration of war, this is a targeted attack. What do you make of what's happening so far?
It's probably important to bring in some facts, not just with Emily's impassioned comments, but also some statements from Greg Swenson and indeed the press conference from the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and the U.S. military. The starting point, if you want to ask about what Israel is seeking, is that while they will not use the word specific regime change, they want to get rid of the Iranian leadership. The Israel Defense Minister, Israel Katz, said 2 days ago that Ayatollah Khamenei, the Iran supreme leader, should cease to exist. And Israel has asked the United States not only to come in with the bombing, which we've seen, they've asked the United States to support the targeted assassination of the supreme leader after the successful targeted assassinations of most of Iran's top commanders. So we need to be very clear-eyed about this, and that is that Israel wants to cause so much disruption in Iran that, in effect, the leadership will fall. I think we also need to be clear-eyed, and I appreciate Emily's impassioned speech, but I've got pretty extensive contacts in Iran, having worked there. And Iranians in the country, and almost all of my friends there, want reform of the regime. Some of them want the regime to be removed, and I understand that goal very much. They do not want it to come this way. They don't want it to come this way, first of all, because the Iranian civilians are also getting killed. They don't want it to come this way because it's just destroying the country, and it's going to take years to rebuild it. And they don't want it because the idea of changing your leadership from outside, which they saw in Iraq 2003, and which led to deadly consequences, could happen in Iran. Because if the leadership falls, as much as I dislike the leadership, you have the question of how you can fill that power vacuum. And you have to understand that any Iranian who has any association with Israel is going to be considered as someone who really shouldn't be a new leader in the country. Because Israel, not that my Iranian friends want to see the end of Israel, they accept it as a state, but Israel has been seen as a enemy for so long, which in the past 10 days has carried out a very deadly war against the Islamic Republic.
Do you think that what America has done is a declaration of war? Is that how you would define it?
It's not a formal declaration of war because they would have to get Congress to do that. But yes, this is an act of war. I mean, you have attacked nuclear facilities and you have attacked it without a legally established cause. And the reason, again, and this pushes back on what Greg Swenson's saying, is, first of all, there is no evidence that those nuclear facilities were pursuing a nuclear weapon. The International Atomic Energy Agency said last week that they are not currently producing a nuclear weapon. The U.S. intelligence services, led by Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, say Iran is not currently pursuing a nuclear weapon. So you don't have a cause there. Secondly, these are facilities which are part of an international system called the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, overseen by the International Atomic Energy Agency. If there are issues over these facilities, then it's the IAEA should be established. And perhaps most importantly, it's not Iran that walked away from the negotiations. That's a misrepresentation by Pete Hegseth. Iran was negotiating all the way up to the point that Israel attacked. It's actually the U.S. that walked out of the negotiations.
Scott, we have to finish it there. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. That's Scott Lucas, Professor of International Politics. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you.